Come on now. Thank you, Alan. Good morning. Welcome to Center for Spiritual Living St. George. My name is Reverend Laura Hallett, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here today. I'm so happy you decided to be here instead of out in this glorious weather. So, we're just a little bit envious of what's happening outside right now because it is going to be a spectacular day. But it's going to be a spectacular day inside too. So we're going to start off this morning. Well, let me, because I seem to forget this every once in a while. We are an open, loving, inclusive community, and we see the expression of God in you, and we honor you for the unique way that you show up as it. We're so delighted to have you here with us. If this is your first time, we have a packet here for anyone that has a little bit more information about us, plus one of our magazines here. If you'd raise your hand, Mary will be happy to bring it around to you. There's also a free gift in there from our fabulous bookstore that Sue Fulmer has put together for us. If you fill out the little card, you can get the little free gift in there. And if you'd like to be on our newsletter or get information from us, there's a little box there to check. We don't inundate you with that. We're really good about that. You don't ever get too many of them.
Can I ask one more time?
Oh, raise your hands again, Mary Sue. Thought she saw some more hands.
No? Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you all for joining us. If this is your first time, if it's your second time back, we're so delighted to have you back and glad you found something that made you want to come back here again. And for those of you that are regular attendees, we're so delighted to see your presence here again with us. So we're going to start off by singing. Cheryl's got a song for us. The words will be up here, so we invite you to sing along with us.
Good morning, Center for Spiritual Living St. George.
Somebody that you haven't greeted before, shake a hand, give a hug, make a new friend.
Had the really
Yeah, my hands are always full, you're right. Will you be available for lunch today? Available to have lunch today? Oh, I wasn't here last Sunday, so I missed the announcement, but I remember. Okay, yeah, potato sounds good. I went to the Sanitarian Universalist for service last Sunday. We only meet every other week. Just for a little change up, see what that's like. Very much like what we teach. It's a non-denominational Christian bookstore that is really interesting.
Good morning, Mother.
How are you? And where do they meet? That's a L-shaped shop, and they're right in the corner. For now, they're renting. They've been there, I don't know, 6 months, something like that. I can't wait to do it. Not now, no. But it was promotion because they're to join. But I think usually 20 to 30, something like that. They're kind of like we.
Then we're giving the sound up.
Yeah. Well, they've been around for about 10 years, but they're still scribbling along. Interesting numbers to see here. Well, right now we're pleased with our starting to just whatever. Their work was an eye-opener. I enjoyed it, and I'll probably go back again. Well, it is a little bit, yeah, but this is my home, and I've watched this through the years.
Is that the one you're talking about? Right.
Oh, I know.
I'm very into it too.
All right, that was the 3 bells. I need a bigger bell. Next week I'll bring my gong. How's that? We are chatty today. Nothing better than enjoying the community, that's for sure. All right, so as we enter into this little more contemplative time of our service, if you would take a moment and check your cell phones, make sure they're turned off so we won't be interrupted. Cheryl's going to sing us into our invocation with a song that she wrote, and our invocation will be given by Sharon Shores today.
Welcome each day. I trust the divine. Choose which path to take, which thoughts to align, to find peace so sweet, the truth of my soul. It's all that I need. I have faith and know. To find peace so sweet, the truth of my soul. It's all that I need. I have faith and know.
Breathing deep, stepping into this moment, having faith and knowing that all is perfection, that all is well. I give thanks for this day, for this community that is emanating out the love, the peace, the compassion, everything that is good and great. I speak this word that it is all good. I give thanks for all of those in this congregation who are part of this, moving this love and compassion out into the world. Give thanks for the leadership of Reverend Laura and all of those who serve today. Give thanks for our fellowship together, the meal that we're going to enjoy together, and for our general meeting. Absolutely knowing that peace, love, and compassion and all good things are emanating in and throughout us, and releasing that into the law with a great knowing, absolutely knowing that my words have power, releasing that into that divine love with the faith and absolute knowing that it is so. And together we say, and so it is.
Lead with my heart, I breathe and expand, and make room for God to better my plans. The good I desire awaits in the flow. each moment a gift. I have faith and know. If you'd like to affirm these words with me, they'll be on the board there. I welcome each day. I trust the divine. Choose which path to take, which thoughts to align, to find peace so sweet, the truth of my soul. It's all that I need. I have faith and know. I lead with my heart. I lead with my heart. I breathe and expand and make room for God to better my plans. The good I desire awaits in the flow, each moment a gift. I have faith and know. The good I desire, one more time. The good I desire awaits in the flow, each moment a gift. I have faith and know. Gonna have a helper come up for this next song. So we know that in Science of Mind, the heart of the philosophy is change your thinking, change your life, right? And there's something in that that resonates with us. We have that divine spark, and we know it when we hear it, we feel it. Last year, we all collectively, the nation, if not the country, fell in love with a ragtag band of misfits who knew that they could create their own reality. They believed in their dreams. And it resonated so strongly with us that it just swept the country. And we believed along with them, as they preached through song and dance, that we can live in a world that we design. This is a Million Dreams from The Greatest Showman. I close my eyes and I can see a world that's waiting up for me that I call my own. Through the dark, through the door, through where no one's been before, but it feels like home. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say I've lost my mind. I don't care, so call me crazy. We can live in a world that we design, 'cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. Million dreams for the world we're gonna make. There's a house we can build, every room inside is filled with things from far away. Special things I compile, each one there to make you smile on a rainy day. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say we've lost our minds. I don't care if they call us crazy. Run away to a world that we design. We may be right, we may be wrong, but I want to bring you along to the world I see, to the world we close our eyes to see. We close our eyes to see. Every night and I in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make. Million dreams for the world we're gonna make.
Cheryl and Grace Barlow, isn't that fabulous? A wonderful gift for us this morning. Thank you. All right. Okay, so this month we are looking at the spiritual value of integrity, being truthful in our words, thoughts, and deeds, and how we apply that to our lives, how we begin to live from that place of integrity from within and seeing how that shows up in our life. Today the topic is how do we live a spiritual life, or living a spiritual life here. So first off, what does it mean to actually live a spiritual life? How does that show up? How does that feel to you as far as what goes on in your daily life? For me, it's a peace that has come over my life, to know that I am now more at ease with not just the everyday things in my life, but all of the challenges too. So that when I'm faced with a challenge, I respond to it in a different way than I would have in the past. For me, it's also about living in touch with Spirit through all of my actions, my thoughts, my deeds, my way of being, that everything that I do is done through a spiritual practice. I have various practices that I use to help me have that connection. For me, that's what it's really about, being connected with Source all the time. And Source can be whatever you want to call it. I know there are people that have issues with the word God. That's the one that happens to resonate with me. But it doesn't matter what you call it. It's what you feel in your side when you connect with it. So that universal essence, love intelligence. I remember earlier in the year I told you that Ernest Holmes, in the first 4 chapters of his book, he uses 88 different names of God. So you can call it whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. I have a friend who calls it Howard. Well, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That's what she calls it. I have another friend who calls it Ta, T-A, because for her it's the all. And so that's the abbreviation of it. It doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it whatever works for you. But it's about cultivating that personal relationship with it and about living your life from that relationship. So in my life, I didn't have a lot of spiritual. I went to church when I was younger. Family went to church. We went to church. My father happened to be in the Air Force, and as I was growing up, and so my parents, being Protestant, would attend whatever Protestant service they happened to offer. So sometimes we had a minister that was Methodist. Sometimes we had one that was Presbyterian. Sometimes we had one that was Baptist. It didn't matter. We attended those churches because they had, in the Air Force, they had a Catholic church and they had a Protestant church. And so you went to the service that worked for you. When we moved here, I joined a Presbyterian church and went to that for a while. But nothing really resonated with me. I was always intrigued by the Bible, and until I really actually read it. I was just so thrilled with it. Because I hear these beautiful passages, these absolute gorgeous passages that would move my soul, and I wanted to know more. And so I'd find it in the Bible, and then I'd start reading all of the stuff around it. And the stuff around it really would tick me off. And so I pushed the Bible away for a long time. I was never really much into alternative religions. I just finally got to a place where it was like, well, kind of like if God is all there is and knows everything, then me asking God for something is kind of silly. God knows what I need, so why would I ask? And so, and I thought, well, I couldn't ever get around the punishing God, because if God is love, there was no way God could be punishing me for anything. And so I just eventually came to the conclusion that there wasn't a God, that we existed on this earth, and that was that. And I wasn't looking for religion when I came into Centers for Spiritual Living. I was asked by a friend to help her put a computer system together for the bookstore. I was a computer specialist, so that's what I did. And I always say I found something there I didn't know I was looking for. And it really resonated with me, and it was, I kind of took a backward path getting into spirituality. But once I began to have spiritual experiences in my life, then there began this resonance within me that was, well, I knew something that I could never unknow. And it's hard to explain what the experiences have been. It's not hard to explain the experience. It's hard to explain the impact that it had on my life. Because it's one of those it's an inner process. It's an inner thing that happens. And after that point, then, I developed this amazing faith in this power, in this presence, in this thing that I call God, which you can call whatever you want. And so that is basically how I began to live a spiritual life. There have been practices and things along the way that have really supported that idea of cultivating an inner life. Howard Thurman, who's our book of the month, he talks about cultivating an inner life in here. First off, he says that there is a kind of anxiety that's like a sense of impending doom that comes into a life when spirit is crowded by too much movement. He says the spirit needs space to work in our lives. And so cultivating that inner life is the way that we allow spirit to have space for doing that. If your life is too crowded, then there isn't space for spirit to operate in there. He said the purpose of it is to increase the margin of oneself that is available for the cultivation of the inner life. And so one of the first practices I began with was meditation. And meditation is all about creating inner space in your life. It's about quieting yourself enough to where you can actually feel that presence. And so meditation was one of the hooks that got me into this. And so I began a very dedicated practice of meditation, as well as a search for all kinds of meditation practices. So that's one of my delights, is to find new ways to meditate, new ways to calm my mind and to get still, and to see what I can discover through that. The thing with the discovery about stuff. So, how many of you have ever had some kind of experience like that really transformed your life? Anybody? Okay. How many of you remembered it 2 weeks later? Yeah. You might remember parts of it. You might remember the thing, but it's not always easy to keep hold of that experience. Things that transform our lives sometimes are just for that moment. And it's hard sometimes to remember to keep those moments really alive within us. When I was in Prac 1 class, I came across a quote, happened to be by Howard Thurman, but it's from a different book than the one we're studying this week. He has two books. One's called The Inward Journey, which is the book of their month, and this one is an anthology of all of his writings that was put together after his death. Not all of his writings, but it's the best of all of his writings, by his daughter, Anne Thurman. You may have heard this before. This one impacted me so much that I actually have stickers of it in lots of places throughout my house. I have them in my car. I have so much before me. The title of it's called The Moments of High Resolve. Let's see if I can get through without crying. We'll be good. Mm-hmm. Keep fresh before me my moments of high resolve. Despite the dullness and the barrenness of the days that pass, if I search with due diligence, I can always find a deposit left by some former radiance. But I had forgotten it. At the time, it was full-orbed, glorious and resplendent, and I was sure I would never forget. In the moment of its fullness, I was sure that it would illumine my path for all the rest of my journey. I had forgotten how easy it is to forget. There was no intent to betray what seemed to be so sure at the time. My response was whole and clean and authentic. But little by little, there crept into my life the dust and the grit of the journey. Details, lower level demands, all kinds of cross currents, nothing momentous, nothing overwhelming, nothing flagrant, just the wear and tear of everyday life. If there had been some direct challenge, a clear-cut issue, I would have fought it to the end and beyond. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me my moments of high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempest, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless and unfamiliar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me my moments of high resolve. For me, this has been an amazing process because it's so easy to have the moments of transformation. Well, it's not easy, but it happens frequently. But to keep committed to that transformation that occurs requires several important things. One thing that I've learned, which many of the saints and sages throughout history have known, is the process of humility. It is so easy to have a transformative event happen in our lives and say, oh wow, look what I created. It is so easy to do that. It is so easy to forget the source that is moving through us, bringing these things into expression. Humility, true humility, is knowing that it is the Father within that doeth the works. And when I can remember that, I don't get caught up in all the grandeur of it. And the things seem to solidify a little better in my life. And the second practice that I do frequently for this is a Buddhist practice called non-attachment. We were just reading in the Howard Thurman book at the book club on Wednesday about the difference between attachment and non-attachment. Or maybe it was envisioning. It was envisioning. Never mind. Visioning class, right? I'm reading 6 books right now, just so you know. Trying to keep which one straight. So in visioning class, we're talking about attachment, detachment, and non-attachment. And so when we're attached to something, we hold on to it. We try to make it work. We try to work our system to get that thing going, which is forcing it instead of allowing it to flow. I have friends who are in ministry, and everything they do, they say, is this upstream or downstream? If it's upstream, then we know it's not right for us to be doing it, because I'm pushing my boat upstream. I'm trying to make it happen. But if it's downstream, it's flowing through me. And so they have that question that they ask themselves, is this an upstream activity or a downstream thing? Detachment is to give up on something. It's not a positive kind of atmosphere. It's just like, oh, I just don't even care. I don't want to deal with it. It's, just get it out of my life. But non-attachment is to not be concerned with the outcome and just allow the process to happen. And so non-attachment is a great place to live from. When I first heard about non-attachment, I'm thinking, because they say, you're supposed to be attached to nothing. Attachment is what leads to suffering. That's the Buddhist philosophy, and so you become non-attached. And so I'm thinking, well, how can there are things I care about. I don't want to be non-attached from those. But I realize now that it's a process of not focusing so much on the outcome of something and allowing it to unfold within me easily and effortlessly. It's the downstream thing. Another practice that I do a lot, which is similar to non-attachment, is to surrender. For me, surrender looks a lot like this. I'm faced with some kind of an issue, a challenge in my life, and I could actually try to sit and mentally figure out the answer to it and try to force something to happen, which is, again, that kind of going upstream thing. But for me, surrender is about saying, I don't know what to do here, God, but I know you do. And so I'm going to sit in the quiet, in the stillness, until something is revealed. And sometimes I'll hear something and I'll be motivated to do something. And sometimes it's just the process of being still and centered that allows me to take the next step. But for me, living that spiritual life is a lot about surrender. It's giving up control again. I of my own self can do nothing. It's the Father within that doeth the works. It's not being attached to the outcome. It's saying what's here for me to know and what's my next step. And listening. Cultivating that inner life, that stillness that allows me to hear that voice or to feel something that, or to just have that sense that this is the next thing I'm to do and allow myself to do that. All of that stuff takes a lot of faith. And faith is another practice of mine. Faith for me has been developed through my experiences. Those things that I need to keep fresh before me. The ones that have been really powerful in my life, they're easy to keep fresh before me. The moments when I've felt like I've been touched by Spirit, when I've heard that voice. And it's kind of hard to, somebody asked me one day, when I was telling them about an experience I had, they said, well, what does the voice of God sound like? And I just laughed and I said, it sounds like me. It can be nothing else. It's Spirit moving through me. And so, which again is, that you could think of that's an egotistical kind of thing, but it's not. There's a humility that's knowing it's the Father within that doeth the works. It's not me. But that's how it comes through, because that's the only way God can express is through us, through each one of us individually, through the actions that we take, through our hearts, through our hands, through our minds. That's how God shows up in the world. So this is the one I'm working on. I'm not real thrilled with working on it. I can tell you that right now. This is the spiritual concept of discipline. I got it. These are my people. There is something about that is really working me right now in lots of areas of my life. That discipline of keeping true to my practice. Keeping true. It's been so easy for me since I came here about 6 months ago now to want to spend all my time in that office. It's so easy. I mean, really, I have to keep myself away because I want to spend I love it. I love what I'm doing. I'm having a ball. There are things that need to be done. I want to spend all my time in there working, or I want to spend my time teaching classes, and I want to spend my time talking to people. And that doesn't allow for my cultivating my inner life. And so for me, it's becoming a discipline of keeping my days off sacred and not doing church things on those days off. Because again, even if I'm not sitting in that office, I'm sitting at home on my computer working on something. But to do that, and so for me, it's beginning to start to cultivate practices in my life that are going to support me having that inner life in there. Michael Beckwith talks about discipline a lot in his books, and one of his my favorite books of his is Spiritual Liberation. And in that book, he says that discipline leads to blissipline. He likes to make up his own words. I think with Michael Beckwith, he's really good at that. But it's true. Once you become disciplined with that, I have a friend who is like so unbelievably disciplined that I just sit and chuckle at it. It's just like they came to my house and was staying here, and it was Monday, and that was their down day, and I had two people in my house, and it's not that big of a house, that I never saw or heard all day long for an entire day, because they're so disciplined to their spiritual practice and to their self-care. And so I'm trying, I don't know if I want to emulate all of that, but I'm trying to cultivate a little more idea of discipline in my life, to be actually true and firm to it. That's the way we keep fresh before us our moments of high resolve, is by developing and cultivating that life that supports this transformation process in it. So one of the things that I've done periodically, I love to find different practices, and you've never heard me talk about this guy before. This is one of my favorite authors, Joel Goldsmith. So Joel Goldsmith has a book he calls Practicing the Presence. There are lots of books out there called Practicing the Presence, by the way, written since, since the 1200s, I think was the first one I come across. St. John of the Cross wrote one called Practicing the Presence. So practicing the presence is about keeping God in your life all the time, keeping your mind stayed on thee, as it says in the Bible. It's about developing conscious union with that internal presence, that universal intelligence, whatever you want to call it. It's about developing that connection and keeping it in your life all the time. And so in his book, Practicing the Presence, he has these guidelines that my dear friend Colleen Tanaka put together into a wonderful little handout here, which I have available for you at the back. This is how you can, throughout your day, cultivate the presence of God. And this is it's an 8-week process. He suggests you do one a week on there, but you can do it however you wanted to do it. For me, I do them periodically throughout my day. So usually now it's not even something I have to remind myself of. It kind of comes to me spontaneously. For instance, in week 6, it says here for week 7. Every time you get into a car, you remind yourself, God is the mind of every driver on the road. And I do that every single time I get into a car, whether I'm driving or not, which most often I'm driving, but that's another story. So I sit down and I just take one moment. It just takes, 10 seconds, just to remind myself, God is the mind of every driver on the road. Okay? It keeps, I think my automobile record speaks for itself. What is it, 42 years of driving and never had an accident. So there we go. And I'm not even going to knock on wood, because God is the mind of every driver on the road. You start off when you get up in the morning by, and a lot of this comes from the Bible. Joel Goldsmith is very much of a biblical scholar, so a lot of his things, but you could say it in any way you want to say it. But you wake up in the morning, before you even get out of bed, you say, this is the day the Lord hath made. God is, I am. I am living by grace today, and God's grace is my sufficiency in all things. So the moment you wake up, you bring your attention back to spirit. Week 2, whenever you cross a threshold, you enter a door, the presence of God goes before me to prepare the way and to be the love that greets me. The presence of God goes before me to prepare the way. So I step across any threshold, anything I'm going to enter into. Imagine if you're going into a place where, let's say you have to go to the DMV, and you cross that threshold. The presence of God goes before me and prepares the way. And love is the presence that greets me on the other side. Imagine what your experience is going to be then differently, how differently it's going to be. Now, after you cross the threshold for the next week, you say, the presence of God remains behind me as a blessing. Okay? So I'm going before it, and I know that God is right there behind me. It's everywhere around me is the presence of God. This is week 4. When you're going to your work, when you're going to your job, or each time you have to do a new task, if you're not a working person. God brought me the work of this day, and the presence within performs it. It is the Father within who doeth the works. This is God's work here. God brought me the work to do today. For week 6 is about when you eat. God is the spiritual substance of food. God is the spiritual substance of all form. Okay? When I sit down to eat, I remind myself that it was a seed, which is God, that was planted in the soil, which is God, which is harvested by the hands, which are God, and brought to me by the people who are God. I deliver it and bring it into my body. It is God greeting God as the substance goes into me. Imagine what a different relationship you would have with your food if you remembered that each time you ate. This morning I had a donut. I remembered that. No calories in that thing. It was just God. And it was good. So week 7 was God is the mind of every driver on the road. And week 8, every time you find yourself standing in line, can you imagine this? Every time you're in line, doctor's office, waiting in the doctor's office, sitting at the DMV, whatever it is, grocery store, everywhere. Close your eyes and just silently affirm, I am here, I am available, and I am listening. And then just be still and listen. You know, I used to take something with me when I went to the doctor's office to wait, because you never know how long it's going to be. I would take a book with me or whatever, and I don't anymore. I just sit and close my eyes. What a beautiful time to have to relax. My doctor's appointments are always peaceful, and so forth. You know, I don't know. I mean, you could say it's a coincidence, and I think I've cultivated a relationship with God. I'm living a spiritual life, and my life unfolds easily and effortlessly. Some of my transformations I remember. I've hardly gone a day without a tie in a year and a half, so that's one of my transformations. Some of them, when I remember. Some of them stick more than others. Ones that I really want to stick, I remind myself of this. Keep fresh before me my moments of high resolve. So that when I forget about it, I can remember that momentary feeling. We oftentimes have meditation experiences or any kind of a transformative experience that is so powerful we want to recreate it. But the object is not to recreate that, it's just to remember it. To remember it and keep it fresh before you, so that that presence has a place to operate. You know, Joel calls it conscious union with God. So I'm cultivating a conscious union with God in everything that I do. For me, that's how I live a spiritual life. I went from no spiritual life, no belief system. What is this? 2019. 15 years ago, I went from a no belief, no spiritual system whatsoever to living a very deep and rich spiritual life now. And it's through these practices, through all these different things that we do. You know, if you're not familiar with them, take one of our classes, attend one of our workshops. Come here on Sunday mornings, we talk about it. We have 3 great workshops coming up in the next month or month and a half. I'm going to do one on spiritual mind treatment, free workshop for the community. We're going to be doing one, Sue's going to bring her personal guidance cards to us, which she's done before, and it's a thrilling way. I mean, you know, you can go out and buy a deck of cards, you know, Doreen Virtue's angel or dolphin cards or whatever, and they might give you some insight, absolutely, but nothing gives you the insight like making your own and developing that from within and saying, what does God want to say to me? What kind of a guidance card would God create for me? That's powerful practice. Kelly and Anita at the end of the month are also going to be doing a labyrinth workshop. Walking a labyrinth has been a powerful spiritual practice for me. I did it for over a year, at least once a week for over a year, and it has been a very transformative thing. Walking a labyrinth is a meditative experience. It's a movement meditation. And so, and it's really great to take a question into the labyrinth and then see what God wants to reveal to me through it. You know, we have all these fabulous ways that you can begin to cultivate a deeper spiritual connection with your God of your own understanding. So I hope to take part in those. So we're going to cement this with a little prayer. Cheryl's going to lead us into the prayer. What we call a prayer weave. We love to do this. Oh, this is one of my favorite songs by Karen Drucker and a few others.
I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am stronger every moment, every day. My mind is willing and my heart is open wide. I trust my instincts and let Spirit be my guide. I vow to live a life that's real and pure and free, as I continue walking in this mystery. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For I take is taken in pure faith, and I am grateful every moment, every day.
And how good it is to just take that time and surrender. To set aside all of our worries, our doubts, our ideas of limitation and lack, and focus ourselves instead on the truth. And the truth is this, that there is only one power and one presence, one divine creative source that is expressing itself in, through, and as all of creation. I simply know this one is God, and I know that God is all there is, that nothing existed before it. And so when it began to create, it had only itself to create from. And it brought forth everything. Everything that's ever been, everything that is yet to be, is that unique, divine expression of the one. And since I know there is only one, I know that I am one with it. I know that the power and the presence of God resides right within me. It is moving through me. It is manifesting itself as me. It shows up in all that I am and all that I do. And as I know this is true for me, I know this is true for each person here and each person within the sound of my voice. In fact, each person that has ever existed is that divine emanation of the one, endowed with all that God is, with that perfect love, that infinite peace, that wisdom and clarity, that divine abundance and prosperity. That is the truth of all life. And so in complete realization of this power and presence manifested through all life, I now speak my word. I know that there is only this one life, and that each one of us is living it beautifully, easily, uniquely as us. I know that that power and that presence goes before us and prepares the way, makes the crooked places straight, and remains behind us as a blessing and a benediction to all who come near. I know that as we align ourselves with this truth, that we become that place of comfort and ease and grace for everyone we meet, that our lives unfold easily and effortlessly under grace and in perfect ways. I'm so grateful to know this. I'm so grateful to feel this power and presence, and I'm so grateful to see it operating in the lives of every member of this community. And I simply release this word into the law, into that creative mind of the one that always says yes. I let it go and I let it be. And together we say, so it is.
Maybe walls, there may be roadblocks in my way, but I can choose to take a higher path each day. And now I know that what I thought was safe and sound was only habit and regret that held me down. Feel free to sing along. The words will be on the screen for this last verse. I will surrender. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am kinder every moment, every day, and I'm more loving every moment, every day. I will surrender every moment, every day.
See why I love it? All right. So now is that time in our service when we enter into another spiritual practice of conscious giving. And so if you will, take out your gift and prepare it. If you're interested in doing electronic tithing, see us after service, and one of the ushers, myself, and we'll get you set up with that. We have a tablet in the back that we can do that with. So as you get your gift ready, I just invite you to hold it over your heart and give it a silent blessing in whatever way you choose. And if you would, just repeat after me. This gift I give.
This gift I give
Goes forth from me.
goes forth from me.
Does amazing and miraculous things.
Does amazing and miraculous things.
And returns to me in kind.
And returns to me in kind.
Pressed down and overflowing.
Pressed down and overflowing.
And so it is.
And so it is.
The song here.
All good, holy, holy. All good, holy, holy. All in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. Let me know all is good, holy, holy. All love. All love, holy, holy. All love, holy, holy. All in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. Let me know all is one, holy, holy. All one. All one, holy, holy. All one, holy, holy. All in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. Let me know all is one, holy, holy.
And how blessed we are to receive each one of these offerings that has been given through love, through generosity, through that understanding of the source of all supply. I'm so grateful to receive this. I'm so grateful to see what happens with it as we share it forth into our community. For I know that truly we are all blessed by it. And I just give thanks for this. I give thanks for the hearts and the hands that donated. I give thanks for the minds and the consciousness of all of us who hold it in that high esteem. And for this and so much more, I just give thanks. And so it is.
So it is.
All one, holy, holy. All one, holy, holy. All in my mind, in my heart, in my soul. Let me know all is one, holy, holy. Let me know all is one, holy, holy.
We're not putting a holy hold on it. I didn't do that. I copied that. All right, we have a few announcements for you this morning. Baked potato potluck. You may have been smelling them over there. We've got lots of baked potatoes. I think we have about over 50 different baked potatoes, so please make sure you stay and have potluck with us today. Following that, at 1 o'clock, we will have our annual membership meeting. I put down till 3. We'll be out of here by 2. So don't worry about that. Just want to give us some space to, we have to have that expansiveness in our life. So we have a new hiking club. It started last Saturday. So they meet here at the center at 9 a.m. and they go for wonderful hikes throughout the community. They decided to meet early because it's starting to get warm. And so we want to be able to do that. So if you're interested in that, see Jackie or Tatis or Jerry, there they are over here for more information about that. I'm going to be joining them, so that'll be fun. Auditions for our music ministry. If you're interested in singing, performing in any way, if you have an instrument talent or anything like that, Cheryl and Alan have set up an audition first Saturday of each month here at the center at 10 a.m. There's a sign-up sheet on the table. They would like you to sign up for a time slot so we don't have everybody converge at once and have to wait. More information, see Cheryl or Alan. Our discussion group, very vibrant discussion group that's going on Monday afternoons. Chris and Gwen, I think Gwen's she's in Crete right now, right?
Yes.
Lucky thing. Anyway, they're having they do a wonderful recap of what we talked about today, a little bit of exploration of the Science of Mind magazine, and just a discussion of any kind of topics related to Science of Mind, which is our philosophy for those of you that are new. We practice the Science of Mind philosophy. Our book of the month, book study, as I mentioned, is The Inward Journey by Howard Thurman. We have a different book each month. The list is on the back. We are just starting to get the books available for the bookstore, so if you're interested in buying one, they're not there yet, but they're on my desk. They didn't get into the bookstore yet, but they'll be there soon for the next 2 months. Next month's book is, next month we're going to talk about diversity and inclusion. And so I found a great book called Blind Spots, Hidden Biases Good People Have. So I think it's going to be a fabulous exploration for that. My office hours, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 1 to 5. There's a sign-up sheet over there. Please come by and see me if you'd like to talk about anything. Personal things, if you'd like to know more about what we're doing here or anything about our philosophy, or you have some kind of thing you'd like to talk about with the center. So just come and see me. I'm here. And I love talking. Thank you. So we have been cultivating some unique gifts for our bookstore. We've had some local artists that have donated some things, and we've got them here on display for sale in the bookstore. So Sue sent me some pictures, so we've got them up here. These are my books, so if you're interested in a spiritual practice, they're available in the bookstore. We've got some cool rocks. I've got one on my desk, and bowls. I have one of those on my desk too. So. And pictures over here. So check out our bookstore after service. Personal prayer. It's actually been changed. It's going to be done with Mary Klein over here. Personal prayer is in this room here. So if you're interested in receiving personal spiritual mind treatment after service, go see Mary. Well, we have coffee and goodies, but we're having a baked potato potluck. So hope you stay for that. All right. I think that pretty much completes our day. We're going to close it out here with an affirmation and then a song. So if you would stand. Always good to get the blood going and put a little movement in us. Just repeat after me, please. Something wonderful is happening through me right now.
Something wonderful is happening through me right now.
It is this thing called life.
It is this thing called life.
Life is in my mind.
Life is in my mind.
Life is in my body.
Life is in my body.
Life is in my everyday actions.
Life is in my everyday actions.
I am it.
I am it.
I live it.
I live it.
I embrace it.
I embrace it.
And I share it.
And I share it.
Just the way that it is.
Just the way that it is.
And just the way that it's becoming.
And just the way that it's becoming.
Thank you, life.
Thank you, life.
So it is.
It's a new day.